This disease, dementia or Alzheimer's disease, is a disease of midlife. And so it generally starts in our 30s. It starts in our 30s, but the first symptoms show up in our late 60s, 70s, and beyond.
We tend to think of brain decline as an inevitable part of aging, a tragedy reserved for the elderly. But neurophysiologist Louisa Nicola argues that the clock starts ticking decades before we notice a single symptom. We spend our lives training our bodies for aesthetics, while the organ that defines who we are quietly atrophies. The good news? You can physically intervene. This is Synthesize, where we turn long podcast conversations into their most important ideas. There is a dangerous fatalism when it comes to diseases like Alzheimer's. We look at our family trees, see the history of dementia, and assume our fate is sealed in our DNA. We convince ourselves that biology is destiny, but modern neuroscience has a different verdict.
Now, if we go through and we have a look at all of the people that currently have Alzheimer's disease, 95% of them could have been prevented, because this is not a disease of genetics, it's a disease of lifestyle.
This is the concept of epigenetics. While you cannot change the genes you were born with, the hardware, you have almost total control over which genes get switched on or off, the software. Your daily habits are the keystrokes programming that software. 95% of the risk is not what you inherited, it's what you do today. If you go to the gym, you likely focus on how your muscles look. Maybe you think about strength, but you almost certainly don't think about your legs as a battery for your brain. It turns out, the largest muscles in your body aren't just for movement. They are endocrine organs that communicate directly with your skull.
They found was that the twin who possessed the greatest strength and the most leg power had a bigger brain, larger gray matter volume. They preserved their cognitive functions.
When you contract large muscle groups like your quads and glutes, they release chemical messengers called myokines. These myokines cross the blood-brain barrier and act as fertilizer for your neurons, specifically in the hippocampus, the memory center. Skipping leg day isn't just hurting your physique, it's starving your brain. Here's the most uncomfortable truth for the fit people watching. You might do your 45-minute workout every morning. You crush high-intensity intervals, you lift heavy. But if you then sit at a desk for the next 9 hours, your metabolic health may be identical to someone who never works out at all.
If you sit for more than 10 hours a day, your risk of cardiovascular disease increases even if you meet weekly exercise goals, because prolonged sitting shuts down lipoprotein lipase, an enzyme essential for burning fat and cleaning glucose from the blood.
Yeah, and being sedentary is a disease.
This is the active sedentary phenomenon. Exercise stimulates the enzyme that vacuums sugar and fat out of your blood. But prolonged sitting shuts that enzyme off. You cannot out-train a sedentary job with 1 hour of gym time. The solution isn't more intensity, it's frequency. So, how do we solve the chair problem without quitting our jobs? You don't need a standing desk and you don't need a treadmill workstation. You just need to interrupt the stasis. The biological fix is incredibly simple, free, and takes less than 30 seconds.
And there was a study that was done on this that showed that if you do 10 air squats every hour, this can compensate for your sedentary lifestyle.
10 squats. That's it. It's not about building muscle. It's about turning the vacuum enzyme back on. By contracting your glutes and quads every hour, you dispose of blood glucose and signal to your body that you are still alive, effectively neutralizing the metabolic damage of the chair. We often accept that our organs will stiffen and weaken as we age. The heart, in particular, becomes less compliant, pumping less blood to the brain. But is this stiffening irreversible? Or can specific types of stress actually turn back the biological clock on your most vital organ?
At the end of those 2 years, what he found was that he remodeled the heart by 20 years. So he reversed the age-related effects and defects of the heart by 20 years, essentially turning the 50-year-old hearts into 30-year-old hearts.
This reversal required specific, high-intensity aerobic work. Zone 5 training, where your heart rate is near its max. This intensity forces the heart chambers to become more elastic and compliant. You aren't just maintaining your health. With the right intensity, you are literally buying back decades of function. We tend to view sleep as a passive state, a time when the body shuts down to save energy. But the brain is actually highly active during deep sleep. It initiates a mechanical cleaning process that is critical for preventing the buildup of plaques associated with Alzheimer's.
We activate the glymphatic system. During deep sleep, they shrink. And when they shrink, all of this amyloid beta that's floating around in the cerebral spinal fluid gets washed out. So it's like a washing machine that occurs in your brain.
Think of the glymphatic system as your brain's sewage system. During the day, metabolic waste accumulates. At night, your brain cells physically shrink to create space for spinal fluid to rush through and wash that waste away. If you cut sleep short, you aren't just tired. You are leaving toxic waste in your brain. But life happens. We have deadlines, children, and stress. We can't always get 8 hours of perfect sleep. Is there a buffer? Louisa suggests a supplement, often reserved for bodybuilders, might actually be a critical tool for cognitive survival during periods of high stress.
There's been phenomenal research to show that you can basically creatine your way out of sleep deprivation. So if you've had a long night and you're sleep deprived, maybe you slept 4, 5, 6 hours, you're sleep deprived, you can take high dose creatine in the form of around 15 to 20 grams a day, and you can reverse the negative effects associated with that sleep deprivation.
Creatine isn't just for muscles, it's an energy donor for your brain. It recycles ATP, the currency of cellular energy. When you are sleep deprived, your brain's energy levels crash. Creatine acts as a backup generator, keeping your cognitive lights on even when your biological battery is drained. Finally, none of these protocols, the squats, the sleep, the cardio, matter if you don't do them. We usually think of willpower as a personality trait. You either have it or you don't. But neuroscience reveals that willpower is actually a physical structure in your brain that grows when you do things you hate.
If you love taking ice baths and you take one, your AMCC doesn't change. If you hate the cold, but force yourself to do it anyway, the AMCC grows.
The anterior mid-cingulate cortex, AMCC, is the seat of your will to live. It literally gets larger when you overcome resistance. Every time you do the hard thing, not because you want to, but because you don't want to, you are physically building the brain structure that makes you resilient. We do these things, the squats, the sleep tracking, the uncomfortable training, not just to look good in a mirror today. We do them to protect our identity tomorrow. Because the alternative isn't just forgetting where you put your keys, it is forgetting who you are.
She said to him, and I quote, "I don't know who I am anymore." As I mentioned, this disease robs you of who you are.
The takeaway is clear. Intervene early. The disease starts 30 years before the diagnosis. Interrupt sedentary time. 10 squats every hour neutralizes the chair. Build the reserve. Leg strength and zone 5 cardio are your insurance policy against aging. The brain you have at 70 is being built by the choices you make today. So are you training for a physique or are you training for a life? If this kind of breakdown helps you think differently, you'll probably enjoy the next video too.